Hey there, quilting friends, it's Carolina Moore, your favorite sewing and quilting YouTuber, and I'm here at the Long Beach Quilt Festival. And if you weren't able to join me this weekend, I want to make sure that you get to see all the fun stuff that I've been sharing with the quilters here at Long Beach Quilt Festival. So first of all, of course, I showed them the spot on dot. If you're not familiar with the spot on dot, I don't know why quilting manufacturers, the rulers, always make that 1/8 inch mark so tiny. But that 7/8 inch mark is the one that I need for all my half square triangles, and it's always so small. The spot on dot lets me put this dot right here on my ruler, and that's gonna magnify the lines so that I can line up my fabric and have way more accurate cuts because I can see those lines. They come in sets of 2. So go ahead and go down to the links below if you want to click the link and find out more about the spot on dot. Also, I'm here, of course, showing my boxed bag template. That's the new notion that just launched a month and a half ago. The traditional way that we do boxed corners, right before the boxed bag template, was we would take our regular quilting ruler and we would line it up. In this case, I'm cutting a 2-inch square. And the first step when you're about to box your corner on your fabric this way is to, that's right, cross your fingers, because we're gonna be cutting into our fabric, and if we cut too far, we're gonna ruin that fabric, and we definitely don't wanna ruin our fabric. But if we don't cut far enough, which is usually what happens to me, is we end up with a piece that doesn't pull off. And so you either grab your scissors or you kind of try to fudge it with your rotary cutter and still try not to cut too far. And then you end up with something that's kind of good enough. But of course, none of our sewing should ever be that stressful because this is a hobby, it should be fun. So that's what we use the box bag template for. This will cut box corners as big as 4 inches, so huge tote bags is what you can make with this. But also, here I'm just gonna cut that same 2-inch square. I'm gonna line it up on the 2, I'm gonna line it up on the 2, and then with my regular 45mm rotary cutter, I'm gonna cut this in, and cut this in, and sure enough, I get my perfect square, and it hasn't cut it too far. You can cut 2 layers of fabric, or you can put fusible fleece on the back of your fabric, and you can cut this and it'll cut it perfect every time. Now, a notion that does one thing is great, but I love a notion that does more than one thing. So I have my batting and I have my fabric, and I can put my fabric on my batting. And anytime you make a project that you want to be quick, and whether you're going to sew your pieces of fabric together, stitch around, and then flip it right side out, or it's a project that you need to bind, if you curve your corners first, it's going to be faster, because curves are easier to flip right side out because you don't have to poke out your corners, and it's easier to bind because when binding, I'm pretty good at binding, but I have to slow down at those corners to flip my binding strips around. But with a curve, you can just stitch your binding right around your curve. So it looks fancier and it's easier. So I get credit for being lazy, which is just my favorite. I'm gonna take this piece of fabric, I'm gonna fold it in half, and I'm gonna add a crease here in my fabric. Once I have that crease in there, I'm gonna take my box bag template, I'm gonna put it right here on this crease, and I'm gonna line up what size I wanna cut my dart. When I cut this dart, it's the exact same as the box corner. It has those notches, so it cuts it perfect with my 45-degree ruler. And I cut a perfect little 45-degree notch every single time. Now, some of you may already be seeing this, but if I do a curve and a notch on every single side, I end up with this shape. And when I sew these notches, I end up with this shape, which all of us know, that's our bowl cozy shape. So now I can make custom bowl cozies in all different kinds of sizes because this template cuts as small as a 1/2 inch and up to 3.5 inch darts. Okay, I have 2 more little things that I want to show you because of course I have to show you all the fun notions that I've been showing all the quilters here at Quilt Festival. And I of course dropped my pieces. So one of my favorite rulers is the Creative Grid Strippy Star Ruler. This makes 9-patch star blocks. So normally our star block would be 4 pieces across and 4 pieces down because our star points would be separate pieces. A 4x4 block, that's 36 units, that's a lot of pieces. This is a 9-patch quilt block. 9 pieces is less seams and comes together so much faster. So we're gonna make our 9-patch quilt blocks. I have a YouTube video that will take you in depth on how to use the Strippy Star. Creative Grids has a video on how to use the Strippy Star. There's instructions that come with this on how to use the Strippy Star. But even if you don't have any of that, your cutting instructions are right here on the ruler. So I want to make a 12-inch finished block. Each of these then needs to be 4 inches for my 12-inch finished block. So if they're 4-inch finished, I'm going to cut 4.5-inch finished squares, and I'm going to cut my strips at 2.5 inches. So I've already done that. I'm going to start with my 4.5-inch square. I'm going to take my ruler, put it right on there. Then I'm going to use my marking pen, and I'm going to draw my lines on there. Now you can use a water-soluble marking pen. I often use a mechanical pencil. I have a whole video on different kinds of marking pens that you can use. If you use a friction pen on here, you're probably going to be sad because we're going to iron this in a little bit, and you're going to lose your lines when you iron it, and you'll need that second line later. So if you use a friction pen on this and you lose your line, what you're going to do is you are going to go to your freezer. You're going to open up your freezer. You're going to take out the ice cream. You're going to put this where the ice cream was. You're going to close the freezer. You're going to eat the ice cream, and by the time you're done eating the ice cream, any of your friction pen lines will show back up. Probably about 60 or 70%, but enough that you can see those lines again. So I've got my strip here. I'm going to lay out my units here on my strip, and I don't have to worry about being exact on my 1/4-inch seam allowance because I'm going to stitch on this line. So even if I can't even find my 1/4-inch foot, I'm stitching on the line, and I know I'm stitching in the right spot. So once you've stitched all of these, you're going to flip this open. Here's where you're going to iron this down. If you use your friction pen, it's time for your ice cream break. But if you didn't, we're squaring this up to the size of the backing fabric, and we already have 1 star point on there. We take this piece, put it on our strip, sew the other side, and now we're going to put the other point on there. Once we have 2 points on there, we're making 4 of these star point units, 4 background units, 1 center unit, and we've got our 9-patch block. It's that easy. Now, I have more to tell you about this block because it's so incredibly well designed. The background fabric was cut on the grain. This strip was cut on the grain, but because I trimmed it up, it now has all this bias stretch. Now, I have a rule, any more than 5 pins in a quilt, and I start to get a little upset about it, all this bias is gonna need a lot of pins, but since we're leaving this background fabric intact, that's going to support our fabric, and we don't have to worry about any bias stretch. I can sew this together completely without pins. Also, you may have noticed that this corner doesn't go all the way up to the top, so this point isn't up in my corner. When I stitch this with a 1/4-inch seam allowance, my point drops down even lower. Every single size of this block, and this block goes from 3 inches, you can make blocks this, every single size of these stars, and these stars go from 3 inches finished all the way up to 13.5 inch finished at 1.5 inch increments. Every single one has extra space in your seam allowance, so you've got room to square these up. If you are not exactly perfect on your 1/4-inch seams when you sew them together, you will still have all 8 star points, and you don't have to worry about blunting off your star points when you make your blocks. And yes, that's right, I did say that this ruler makes star blocks from 3 inches all the way up to 13.5 inches at 1.5 inch increments. So 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5, 12, and 13.5 inch blocks, just all with this one ruler. One more thing that I want to show you is our scrap tape. So scrap tape, I actually ran out of scrap tape here at the show. It was so popular, which was so fun. I love doing scrap quilts now, but I didn't before. What I actually used to do with my scraps is I would throw them in flat rate boxes, and I would put on Facebook or Instagram, first 3 people to send me your address, I will pay the shipping to send you these scraps, because I felt so guilty about having all these fabulous scraps, but not enough time to do all the work of pressing all that fabric and cutting them all the same sizes. Because pressing and cutting are not my favorite parts of quilting. Sewing is my favorite part of quilting. So with this, we're gonna take our scraps, we're gonna put it right on this interfacing. Now this is a water-soluble interfacing. I'm gonna stitch with my favorite seam allowance, which is the 1/4 inch-ish. I'm gonna flip this over, and I'm gonna press it. So you can finger press this, or you can use a seam roller to press this, and you're gonna continue to add pieces this way. You don't wanna use an iron to press it, because any steam from the iron is going to start to melt down your water-soluble interfacing, and a hot iron will actually start to melt it. So once you've added all your strips, you flip this over, you square up one side, you cut your other side to 2.5 inches, and now you have something that looks like this. And those are all your scraps now usable in a 2.5 inch strip. I have 2 different quilt patterns that use this. I'm gonna go ahead and link those down below. So 2 different patterns, and have 1 more in the works for using this scrap tape. 1 roll of scrap tape, so just 1 roll will make either of those patterns. If you have a favorite jelly roll pattern that you wanna make scrappy, 2 rolls of scrap tape will get you any of your favorite jelly roll patterns. So 2 rolls equals 1 jelly roll worth of scraps. So those are my favorite notions here from the show that I wanted to show you. Thanks so much for joining. Any of the links for anything that you're interested in are down below. Friends, make sure that you hit subscribe. Make sure you like this video to let people know that you enjoyed it and they might enjoy it as well. And that's what I have for you today. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you right here real soon. Bye for now.